Welcome back to Pre-Algebra. This is Set 2, Equations with Fractions. So we're going to be finishing that up. I am going to do a couple of flip screens to make it easier, but we are just learning the same process, solving equations with fractions. So, same process. We identify what is our variable, what's happening to our variable. So on number 13, n is being added to 1/4, so plus. So in order to get n by itself, we have to do the opposite, subtract. So we're subtracting the fraction 1/4 to both sides, because now 1/4 minus 1/4 is 0. They're the same thing but opposite signs, so they cancel. N is alone on the left side of the equation. So in order to simplify the right side, we see that, well, on the right, we were already given 5/6, and now we are subtracting that 1/4. Well, if you remember, fractions, if we're adding and subtracting fractions, we have to have common denominators. They have to be made of the same number of parts in order to add or subtract them. Kind of like a pie. If a pie is divided into 6 pieces, and then another pie is divided into 4, and I'm trying to combine those things, they're not going to fit well together because they're not the same number of pieces. So we need to find a way to rewrite these fractions. So we're going to do it the long way first, and then I'm going to flip over and show you how to do it in your calculator. A refresher. Make sure you can remember how to do it. We've talked about this in Unit 1, but just real quick. So if we have the fraction 5/6, and we see the denominator currently is 6, the bottom number. Well, that's not the same as our denominator 4. We want those to match. So in order to do so, we need to find a way to rewrite 5/6 as something that 4 can multiply to equal. Well, 4 does not multiply to equal 6. I can't take 4 times any other whole number or integer and make it equal 6. So we got to find another, or the next step up for our fraction. So 6 times 1 is 6, but 6 times 2 is 12. 6 multiplies times 2 to equal 12. 4 multiplies times 3 to equal 12. So now we've seen, well, we've found a common number that they can both multiply equal. 6 times 2 equals 12. And 4 times 3 equals 12. So 4 times 3 equals 12. Perfect. So that gives us the same denominator. But you see, if I multiply this fraction 5/6 by 1/2, that gives us a whole new number. So because we're multiplying just the denominators, if I multiply 5/6 times 2, that makes it bigger. That's changing our number. We don't want to change the fraction 5/6. We just want to rewrite it. So in order to rewrite it, we have to multiply by something that won't change the fraction itself. So if we want that denominator to get bigger, 6 times 2 is 12, then we also have to multiply the top by 2. Because really, if we look at just the left side of the fraction, 2 divided by 2, that is 1. So 1 times 5/6 is the same thing. It means 5/6. It doesn't change what the number means. But if I multiply 5/6 by 2, well, that's doubling it. That's making it bigger. So because we're multiplying by 1, the number doesn't change. We're just changing the way it looks. So anyway, we multiply straight across. 6 times 2 is 12. 2 times 5 is 10. So really, 5/6 is the same thing as 10/12. Okay, so again, we want those fractions to match. So 1/4, we want to make that 4 multiplied equal 12. So we said, well, 4 times 3 equals 12. What we do to the bottom, we have to do the top. Because if I'm multiplying the fraction by just 3, it's making the fraction bigger. But 1/4 times 3/3, well, 3/3 means 1. So that's not changing anything. So 1 times 3 is 3. Now we can see that 10 over 12 minus 3 over 12 will give us our simplified answer. So 10 minus 3, so 10 minus 3 here is 7. And the fraction stays the same. The parts of the whole it comes from doesn't change. So n equals 7 over 12. Okay, so let's say, ooh, Mrs. Barnhart, I really don't remember that process. Okay, well let's start over again. I'll explain another way using your calculator, which is going to be your best friend in this section. So, number 13, n plus 1/4 equals 5/6. Well, n is being added, so we have to do the opposite, subtract, to get n by itself. So we are subtracting 1/4 to both sides. So we already know those cancel. N is by itself on the left side now. So now, if we wanted to take 5/6 minus 1/4 in our calculator, here is your new best friend. The button that says A, B/C. New best friend. So we first type in the number. So we have, in this case, number 5. Then you hit your A, B/C button. Then you type in 6. So now you should have the fraction 5/6. Hit the minus sign. Now type in number 1 for the top of our other fraction. Hit your A, B/C button. Type in 4. So 5/6 minus 1/4 is what it should say. Hit enter, and it should also give you 7/12. N equals 7/12. So that saves us so much time and so much work as long as we're being careful with our fractions and how we're typing them in. Okay, so number 14. 11/18 equals x minus 3 2/3. So 3 2/3, that's a mixed number. So as we can see, 11/18 isn't a mixed number. So we really need to convert these unless we're using our calculator. If we're using our calculator, we're okay. But if we want to see it the long way, so we're not using our calculator, we need to show that work. So number 14. Well, 3 2/3 is a mixed number. So we need to convert it to a improper fraction. So remember, we do the tire method, as one of my students call it. We multiply the bottom, the denominator, times the whole number. So 3 times 3, and we get 9. Then we add the top, so plus 2. So 11 is our top number of our fraction, and then we keep the denominator. So we really have, instead of negative 3 2/3, we have negative 11/3. So the actual problem is 11/18 equals x minus 11/3. That's our problem. Now that we've converted it, we can do the long process to solve. Well, we want to get x by itself, and I say long process, it's not that long, but if we're doing it by hand with fractions, it's a little longer. X is being subtracted. So in order to solve this problem, we have to get x by itself. So we do the opposite. Add 11/3 to both sides. Well, negative 11/3 plus 11/3, that's 0. So really we just have 11/18 plus 11/3. These fractions don't have the same denominators, and they are being added. So we need to make the denominators the same. So 3 is the smaller number. Does 3 multiply by anything to equal the denominator of 18? Well, yes, in this case, it multiplies by 6. 6 times 3 equals 18. So we really don't have to change this fraction because all we have to do is change the second one. So 11/18 is going to stay the same. Now we just have to find the top or the numerator of either fraction. Well, if I multiply the bottom by 6, I also have to multiply the top because 6 divided by 6 is 1. So we're not changing 11/3, we're just rewriting it. And we're not making it a new number. So that's why we have to multiply the top and the bottom by that same number. So 6 times 3 we said was 18. 6 times 11 is 66. So our final answer is going to be 66 plus 11, or 77/18. So final answer, I'm going to have to write it in number 16 a little bit. X equals 77/18. So I would type that in my calculator, 77 divided by 18, hit equals. It'll probably give you a decimal. So then we do second PRB to double check. Well, does this become a simplified fraction? When you do that, it will not simplify. X equals 77/18. So that is the long way to do it. We still use our calculator for it. The shorter way, using our calculator, we do the same process. X is being subtracted, so we add. And we can actually leave it as a mixed number. So we're adding 3 2/3 to both sides, because our calculator can handle the mixed numbers. So if we subtract 2/3 and then we add 3 2/3, well, they cancel. So on the right side of the equation, we just have x. On the left side, we have to simplify that mess. So we do the first fraction, 11, hit our A, B, C button, which makes our fraction, and then 18. Then we do plus 3 2/3. So we type in 3, hit our fraction button, 2, and then hit our fraction button again, and then type in 3. So we just hit the fraction button twice. The first one tells us the whole number, the second one makes the actual fraction itself. And it shouldn't show that on your screen. Then you can hit equals. And either way, it would still give us that 77/18. That one is actually a little shorter, doesn't take quite as much work, but you make sure you have to be careful. So like I said, to do that mixed number, you type in 3, hit that fraction button, so it'll make a little symbol like this on your screen. Then you type in 2, hit that fraction button, it'll give you this little symbol on your calculator. Then you type in the last one. So the whole number, and the top, and then the bottom of our fraction. That's how we type in the calculator. So that asterisk is just saying use that A, B/C number or button. Okay, so I know we know how to do both methods. So we've already learned how to do the long method. So now I'm just going to simplify, and we're going to use the short method for the rest of the notes. You can use that calculator. So ask a friend or come ask me tomorrow morning if you need some more help on how to use the calculator. So 15. M we want to solve for. We want to get it by itself. Right now it's being added, so we have to subtract. And then we're subtracting 1/8. Well, if we're subtracting a negative 1/8, that really means we're adding. It means the opposite. So we're adding 1/8 to both sides. The opposite of a negative is a positive. So that's what makes those cancel. Negative 1/8 plus 1/8. That equals 0. If I'd have negative 1/8 minus 1/8, that'd be negative 2/8. Does not cancel. But now we have m alone. So m equals negative 7 and 24, negative 7 over 24, plus 1/8. So again, fraction button's our best friend. So we do negative 7, fraction button, 24, plus 1, fraction button, 8. And once you do that, you will get negative 1/6 as your final answer. M equals negative 1/6. It is very important that you do have the variable m equals, because we are solving. Okay, so on to 16. Well, A is being added, and we are adding 8 1/2, so we do the opposite, and we subtract. So we subtract 8 1/2. Now A is alone. A equals 5 1/3, so you type in 5, hit that fraction button, 1, hit that fraction button again, 3. Then we do minus 8, hit the fraction button, 1, fraction button again, 2. And that will come out to be negative 19/6. So if you want to see the long way, I will be by in the morning and we can practice again. We're going to practice some more on Friday to make sure we got this down. So as a mixed number, negative 19/6 would be negative 3 1/6. Either answer is okay with me. Just make sure if they give you a fraction, your answer needs to be a fraction.